In today's video, I will be ranking all MLW aces 1 through 8. Last time I did number 2 arms, so this time I do aces. In the future, I'll be ranking hitters and overall players. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now let's go to ace pitchers. We're going to start off with number 8, who everyone expects to be number 8, and that's Caden Irwin. At this point right now, we don't even know who the ace is going to be. We don't even know who the number 2 is going to be. We don't know who the number 3 is going to be for this Mallards team. And quite frankly, we don't even know if Caden Irwin's the best pitcher on his team, because with a healthy Tommy Coughlin, Tommy's the best pitcher on the team. We don't even know if Caden's better than Brendan Davenport at this point. This year in 9.1 innings, he gave up 15 hits with 12 walks, 20 strikeouts, a 6.43 ERA, a 3 whip, and in his arsenal, he threw a drop 45.4% of the time, a riser 34.5% of the time, a slider 16.3%, and a curve, which he threw a little bit against the Eagles, 3.6% of the time. Caden Irwin had a very rocky season. The curve isn't really a main part of his arsenal, and it really became clear that he just does not trust either his slider or his riser, and you can see on camera they're just not good pitches. So he just threw his drop over and over again, and teams started to hit it. Do I think Caden Irwin is going to have that big breakout season that a lot of people are predicting him to do? I'll be honest, I really don't think so. At number 7, you have Cheetam. Now, Chris had a very interesting 2021 season, as he started out in the first half very rocky. He was one of the league's best at some moments. Other moments, he looked like one of the league's worst. In the second half, though, and even in a little bit of the playoffs, he looked really good. This year, in 24.1 innings, he gave up 26 hits, 33 walks, 45 strikeouts, a 3.21 ERA, a 2.51 whip. In his arsenal, he threw a slider 41% of the time, a sidearm drop 28.3% of the time, a sidearm fastball, which has a little drop on it, 11.1% of the time, a super curve 8.9% of the time, same with the riser, and then he threw a 12-6 drop 1.4% of the time. Cheetam is a great pitcher, but he's really inconsistent. But if he pitches like he did in that second half and a little bit into the playoffs, then he could be elite next year. Coming in at number 6, you've got Drew Davis. Now, surprisingly, Drew Davis gave up the least amount of hits out of every single ace here. This year in 29 innings, he only gave up 14 hits, but he also had 52 walks, a solid 66 strikeouts, a 2.79 ERA, a 2.28 whip. In his arsenal, I really liked how Drew balanced his arsenal between 3 pitches. He just did it perfectly. He threw a riser 32% of the time, a slide drop 30% of the time, a screw drop, which I really liked this year. He added that 26.6% of the time. And then he had a little bit of a changeup and a slider, which he both threw under 4% of the time. Drew Davis is a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong. I don't really think that, and he's really good, especially when, his head is in the game. Now, Drew Davis this year showed that his head was pretty much in the game the entire season, which is crucial. But the issue is that sometimes he goes into give up mode. Will he be the long-term ace of this team? I'm not sure, because you never know what's going to happen with Barron, but right now he is the ace. At number 5, you have another guy who might be the ace on his team, might not be, and that's Trevor Bonham. Most people, including me, consider him to be the ace of the Magic, because this year in 34 innings, he only gave up 31 hits with 20 walks, 81 strikeouts, a league high, 1.76 ERA, a 1.5 whip. In his arsenal, he threw a riser 40.6% of the time, a drop 32.9% of the time, and a slider 26.4% of the time. Now, here's my issue with Bonham. Bonham was a great pitcher this year. The only problem is that he gives up way too many home runs. And, even you'll see guys like, Ryan Kracht, Kyle Schultz, Jimmy Knorp, they give up home runs, but not to the extent that Trevor Bonham does. Trevor Bonham gives up way too many home runs. And in my opinion, the most important thing for a wiffle ball pitcher is to limit the home run ball. And Trevor Bonham did not do that this season. Also to mention, he's not really a movement pitcher. He's more of a speed pitcher. If you look at the movement on all of his pitches, all signs will show that Bonham will regress next year just by looking at what he does. All the home runs that he gave up this year just really show he's probably going to regress next year. He also only has 3 pitches in his arsenal. Now, I really like the way that he hides the arm slots and the way he divvies up the 3 pitches. At number 4, you have a guy that honestly could probably be number 2, even number 3. Number 2 through 4 were just so unbelievably hard for me. But at number 4, I am going with longtime veteran Kyle Schultz. In 29 innings, he gave up 29 hits, 24 walks, 68 strikeouts, a 2.17 ERA, a 1.83 whip. In his arsenal, he threw his riser 51% of the time, a submarine drop 35.9% of the time, and then he threw a fastball, a little screwball, and a slider, all under 5% of the time. Kyle Schultz is a good pitcher. He's a really good pitcher, one of the league's best. I don't know if he's going to be better than the next 3 guys on the list going forward. I think he was just as good as number 3 and probably a little bit worse than than number 2 and definitely worse than number 1. He was good in the playoffs, but long term, just overall, I don't know if he's going to be quite as good as these other guys coming up, but you cannot deny how good Kyle Schultz is. At number 3, you've got Ryan Kracht. Now, Ryan Kracht this season, I think is starting to become underrated. Arsenal is still incredible. And when I look for longevity in a pitcher, the biggest thing I look for, the amount of pitches they have, how they divvy them up, and, how well they throw them. And Ryan does that really well, which shows me that he might be good in the future. 32 innings, he gave up 24 hits, 36 walks, which is higher than usual. Still a great 77 strikeouts with a 2.16 ERA, a 1.87 whip. In his arsenal, he threw a slider a little bit too much, 43.5% of the time. But if you look at how much all these other pitchers threw a certain pitch, that's kind of low, to be honest. But he also has a riser, which he throws 14.2% of the time, a curve/overhand drop, which he throws 12.9% of the time, as well as a filthy screwball. And then he throws a slide drop 12.3% of the time, and a new knuckleball, which he throws 3.8% of the time. If next year Ryan Kracht can really just throw like all 6 of these pitches, back at that World Series in 2019, Ryan was throwing 5 pitches at once. So I think that's going to be important for Ryan this next year. 2 things. Don't overuse the knuckleball, because I have a feeling he might. Don't overuse the slider. Don't overuse the riser. Mix them up. Throw in the curve. Throw in the screw. Throw in the slide drop. At number 2, you have got Dan the Man Schultz. This year, fantastic. 24 innings, gave up 19 hits on 20 walks, 54 strikeouts, a 2.37 ERA, a 1.62 whip. In his arsenal, he threw his riser 73.6% of the time. His knuckle drop 12.7% of the time, his drop ball 6.3% of the time, and his slider 5.4% of the time. Dan, great pitcher. One problem, way too easy to read. But Dan is so nasty, it doesn't matter. Look, Daniel Schultz is just the guy that you know what's coming, but the way he spots his pitches, the way he uses his pitches, the control on his pitches, the way you see him pitch, the velocity on his pitches, the fact that he just doesn't really give up that many home runs, and all the clues just tell me that the longevity of Daniel Schultz is great and that he's going to translate great going into this next upcoming season. He was great last year. Now, yes, I am aware his stats are worse than the last 3 guys I've just mentioned. You also have to take into account that Daniel Schultz was the best pitcher in the league after the first series of the year. If Daniel Schultz was on that ballot, I would have voted him Cy Young because of how many awards I was going to give Knorp. And coming in at number 1, you have got the Cy Young, MVP, Silver Slugger, Park Silver Slugger, whatever you want to call him. It's Jimmy Knorp, the star of 2021, the face of MLW at this point. Jimmy Knorp shocked everybody this year. Now, a lot of people saw it coming, but he took the whole wiffle ball world on notice. And this year in 31.1 innings, oh man, was he good. He gave up 27 hits, 21 walks. He had 64 strikeouts, a 1.53 ERA, and whip. In his arsenal, he threw a slider 51% of the time. He threw a riser 21.1% of the time, in a drop ball 12.5% of the time, a slider drop 10.4% of the time, an overhand screwball 4.1% of the time, and a little sidearm submarine screwball 3.4% of the time. Jimmy Knorp's key to success in 2021 is to just keep doing what he's doing. Basically, at the end of the season, he was really just throwing a slider, and that's not something you really want to see, is just guys just completely reverting to one pitch, basically. He was throwing the other pitches occasionally, but not as much as he really needs to. I would love to see him throw his riser a little bit more. Especially love to see him throw a slide drop and his drop more. I think if any pitch is going to be his most used pitch, it should be his slider, but if something had to be second, it should be his drop. Now, I know he puts a lot of torque on it, so maybe that's an issue. And also his slide drop is a filthy pitch. I don't really like either of his screwballs that much. Knorp coming here at number 1, fantastic pitcher. He is going to be one of the top 2 pitchers in the league next year. Thank you guys for watching, and if you did enjoy, make sure you guys hit that like button and that subscribe button. I hope you liked today's video. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree with my rankings. Usually when people are ranking pitchers and hitters or whatever, they usually either go off going into the next season or going off the past season. What I try to do with my rankings, clash them both together. If you have any opinions on this, go down in the comments, voice your opinions. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.